Hello and welcome to the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson. The Local Leaders Podcast provides a platform for successful business owners to share their stories, their experiences, their advice, and their ideas in order to help our listeners achieve more success in their business and in their lives. Get ready, another great show is coming up. Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another awesome episode of the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson, and I am super excited today to introduce you to JoAnne Pomares of Sushi Obsession in Vallejo, California. Welcome to the show, JoAnne.
Hello. I'm super glad to be here.
Well, we're super glad to have you and appreciate you taking a few minutes on this Friday morning, your time. To talk with us. I know you've got a busy day ahead of you. So if you don't mind, I'd love to just open the door up and let you tell us and our listeners a little bit about Sushi Obsession and kind of your story of how you got it going and how things are.
Sure. Yeah. So yes, I'm the manager and owner of Sushi Obsession here in Vallejo, about 30 miles north of San Francisco, towards the Napa Valley area. We've been in business for about a little over 6 years now. How we started, goodness. Well, my parents actually are, I would say, entrepreneurs because they've owned several businesses throughout my childhood and as I was growing up. So they presented the opportunity to me to, right after college, I was a college graduate, they said, hey, do you want to open up a Japanese restaurant and you would be operating the business? We would just be in the kitchen cooking. And I said, wow, that's a big challenge.
Yeah, no doubt.
So my parents and I, we worked together, opening up the business from the very, very beginning. And it took us about 6 months to open the restaurant, from construction to the opening date. And I was with the company for about 2 years. So I was a recent college graduate. So I said, you know what, I really feel like I didn't get to experience, working out in the industry and just, getting that feel of the work field. So I said, hey, I'm just going to do my own thing for a little bit. I'm going to leave the business up to you guys. And I just have to find myself, pretty much. And so 2 years went by. My parents were still running the business. So they're about 4 years into the business at this point. And my mom says to me, we're really, really tired. We're exhausted. We're just going to sell the company because it's, we're there 80 hours a week. We want to rest. And so, it's kind of stuck with me for the next few weeks. I was like, man, I can't believe my parents are selling this. What am I going to do? And at this point, I was kind of already in the work field, and I was like, maybe this is something that I want to take over from my parents. So I came to their house one day. I gave them a presentation of what I had wanted to do for the restaurant and the changes that I wanted to do for the restaurant. And they were so excited. They were like, you know what, this is something we've been praying about. We just want, what's best for you. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So I took on the challenge. And so over the past 2 years, I've been working on rebranding the company, making it really mine. And my parents are just a helping hand still, but with smaller things in the restaurant, if a shift needs to be covered, or my mom's mainly my purchasing department. She goes out and buys things for us that we need. So yeah, that's where we are now, 6 years later, and we're still here.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you did that presentation and kind of took over just ahead of COVID, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you took it off their hands, and then all of a sudden you had to deal with COVID. Were you guys set up as what I mean, is sushi takeoutable? I mean, did that work for you?
Yeah, we're actually 60% takeout, 40% dine-in. So it works out for us anyways, because we're more of a quick service restaurant. And so unlike other businesses during COVID, we were actually blessed to have to be able to still stay open because our city's not it's not that big. So a lot of actually small businesses closed down. And so we were one of the very few restaurants that were still open in Vallejo. And so, you know, when there's a high demand and there's a low supply of restaurants still open, they're going to come to whatever's available. So we just happen to be that availability for these people who are seeking to eat out still during the pandemic. So I would say that we were luckily able to get through the pandemic because of the low supply of the restaurants that were still available during that time.
Well, that's awesome. It's very fortunate and glad you were able to survive that challenging time. You know, so many restaurants were not, many of them just weren't, you know, didn't have food that was really made for takeout. And of course, all the big sit down locations, you know, they were having a tough time, obviously, and I'm glad you guys were there, not only for yourselves, but to feed all the Vallejo folks who needed to eat.
Exactly.
Yeah. So why the Japanese focus? You know, from when you guys started, when your parents originally came to you and said we're going to do this Japanese theme, is there heritage there, or was that just something they were passionate about?
You know, my mom actually a few years back, she was working for this. She was just looking for something part-time. She just kind of wanted to work. So she started working at this Japanese restaurant here in Vallejo, just like another Japanese restaurant. And she actually ended up really liking it. You know, she's really customer service based, and she really likes, you know, building her relationships with her clients, her customers. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, she had that aspect, and she realized, oh wow, you know, like there's business here. So she got her training from the owner, who's Japanese. So she got her sushi training from him. He showed her how to make sushi, how to make Japanese cuisine. So she learned that, and then she wanted to eventually later down the line, like 5-6 years later, after she was training with him, she decided to open up her own because it was just the best route for her. So I guess it worked out in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just curious as to how you chose that, because, you know, we have a lot of listeners who, or a number of listeners anyway, who want to start their own restaurant, but either haven't figured out the concept yet, or hadn't found the right location, or just haven't gotten started. And so it's always interesting to hear how people choose what they do, and kind of the thought process you went through. So I was just curious about that. And, you know, it leads me to thinking about, you know, you started with the restaurant and then you left for a couple of years and then you came back. Did you have to learn a lot when you came back, or were you pretty much good to go from your original couple of years there at the restaurant?
I had to learn, of course, along the way, because there's a lot of things that have changed over time. I actually went to college for business. So I did have the college education to run the business, but of course there's some things that they don't teach you in school, like I can't really think off the top of my head. Dealing with employees, that's I think one thing. Yeah. And just a handful of other things, but you know, there's resources out there like the internet that I really, really rely on because it's a huge help. There's things along the way that I'm like, I need to learn, or that I need to know about, like finances and things to be aware of. Definitely having to up my skills in some things that I didn't realize were a necessity working in this industry. But, you know, in order for you to make money, I think knowledge is power. So the more knowledge you have, the more better decisions you can make for the business and just in life in general, really.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, and it's amazing that so many of us had a college experience, and I majored in business as well. But when I came out, I didn't really know anything.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, you know stuff, but you don't know anything. So it's
Right.
like, yeah, in some cases, I think it's just a training ground to make sure you know how to learn. And then you come out and you really have to learn your trade or your job or whatever it is. And we're always still doing that, which of course is the reason why we put together this podcast to begin with, because we want our listeners to be able to learn from successful entrepreneurs like yourself who have had the opportunity to find success and are willing to share it. So thank you so much for doing that today.
Of course.
Hey, you mentioned challenges like dealing with employees and things like that. And I'm just curious, are you guys facing at your business, are you facing staffing challenges today, or and how are you dealing with that? And then we'll talk about food prices next.
Yes, absolutely 100%. I'm dealing with staffing challenges. It's very hard to find good staff nowadays, or just even keep staff on hand. Before I was working here at the restaurant, I actually was working at an architecture firm, and the turnover rate there was very, very low. So working in the restaurant industry, I'm like, whoa, this is insane. Like, employees do not last like more than like minimum. I'll see them last like 3 months. They don't last more than a year. It's so crazy to me. I'm just so baffled that, like, I've been doing this for probably like 4 or 5 years now, and I'm still amazed at how like people are so quick to quit their jobs so easily. It's very crazy to me. I'm just like baffled.
Yeah, and I think it's baffling for most of us out there around the country to see that people will leave, and they'll leave a job without another job already in place, and just decide one day they don't want to come back. And
Right.
yeah, it is frustrating, especially in the restaurant space. Are you doing anything that has really helped or worked so far to try to recruit additional staff?
I feel like I've tried everything from like social media marketing to in-store signs. I think what I've tried recently, which I think has been really helpful, is like referrals. That has seemed to be the most successful for me, because that everyone knows somebody that needs a job, and so that's been the best for me. I mean, I've tried, going through Indeed or going through like recruiting agencies, but the best one that I've seen so far is through referral, word of mouth.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I had somebody on, I think it was last week, and they had said that their strategy was essentially that, and that was to get referrals, and so they're working to train their staff and themselves to ask their customers, because who better than the people that are coming there to see if they have or know someone who might be looking for an opportunity. And I encourage anybody out there that's listening, if you haven't tried that yet, figure out a way to make that work and see what happens, because your customers can be some of your best referrers for future employees.
That's actually a great suggestion. I didn't even think about that, but I will definitely keep that in mind.
Well, most of us haven't, and it's not something that you're normally used to doing, right? It's way out. It's way out of the box. It's out of the edge there, and heck, it could even be. I was just thinking, if you're running a POS system, you could even put a message on your receipts. Now hiring, and $5 discounted for referrals or whatever. You can go crazy with stuff like that. So something to think about for everybody.
Definitely, yeah.
Hey, speaking of the other challenges and the thing that most of our customers and our restaurant owners are facing today is the food cost issue and food shortages. have you seen a big increase in your cost, and are you being shorted on your food items as well?
Oh man. So that's, yeah, during the pandemic, we buy our like takeout containers at like a local cash and carry store. And so everyone was trying to get their containers that are like small businesses like us at the local cash and carry. So it was really difficult for us to get takeout containers. And what we had to do was buy things in huge bulks. Like I'm talking like 10,000 plus containers that would probably last us like a year or so. And that was difficult because it's like you have to spend this big amount of money, and we're kind of like, okay, well, we're trying to figure out where our expenses are, but we need to buy stuff we need. So that was the issue that we were having. And a lot of things like random things that you wouldn't think would be out or like low supply during this pandemic, but like soy sauce packets, that's one thing that we're struggling to find right now. I have no clue why. Even like the tapioca that we put in our drinks, that's been such a hard thing to come by, or even things like chicken wings. It's so crazy to me how things are like so short during a pandemic, and I'm like, this wasn't a problem before. Why is it a problem now? So those are like the little things that we're seeing, but it's not to where it's like really affecting our business. But you know, we have other suppliers that we communicate with to help us with our shortages, but we still have like backup plans, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was talking with an owner earlier today, actually, and chicken wings was one of the topics because they had been serving chicken wings for 27 years, and they recently took it off the menu just because they couldn't get them at a price that they felt like was, wouldn't offend someone,
I know. Yeah, definitely. Cause that does tend to happen as well. Like you just have to raise your prices if need be, but I do understand that aspect.
Yeah. And speaking of raising prices, have you had to make adjustments as well, either to your menu or to your prices to keep things rolling?
Mainly I would say like our third party, like DoorDash or Uber Eats, Grubhub, because they take 30% of our sales, and we only take 70% back. But of course, we have to think about other costs like our overhead costs, labor, food supply, and things like that. Yeah. So what we've had to do is like raise up the price on our third parties to alleviate the costs that they're charging us. So that, unfortunately, that's what we've had to do to kind of alleviate that. I hate doing it but we have to offset our prices somehow.
Oh no, that's actually a good idea. I haven't heard that before, but basically you've got an in-store menu price, and then if it's delivery, then you got a different price for that.
Exactly. A lot of actually like small restaurants here in our town are actually doing the same thing, which is completely understandable because they're also small businesses, so they need to offset their costs somehow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Third party fees are one of those. And I'll tell you something else that some restaurants are doing, which they weren't doing in the past very often at all, but that's adding an upcharge or a service fee for credit card users. I don't know if you guys have considered that or not, but basically you can reverse the fees nowadays that the credit card processors are charging you back to the customers. Are you seeing that in California at all?
I have seen that at some restaurants, but I haven't seen it too much.
Yeah.
I've even seen things like a small percentage for like COVID fees.
Yeah.
I've seen that as well. And I've seen a lot of backlash on that, which I've considered charging for our restaurant. But, like I said, I don't want to, COVID's already taking an effect on everybody. I'm just trying to kind of like make this fair for everybody. So I've just left it with the third parties. But yeah, I have definitely seen that recently.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting what you've got to do these days to try to get back a few percentage points. And Every restaurant owner is is facing the similar dilemmas and cost increases, and you got to find a way to recover it. So I like what you've done with the takeout piece, and hopefully some of our listeners will grab that idea and maybe make some adjustments to their takeout piece, because delivery companies are killing it. 30% is a big number.
Yeah, for sure.
And are they still adding a fee to the consumer as well on top of that 30?
Oh, of course. They do like a service fee and a delivery fee. So sometimes you may end up paying, like on the consumer end, you may end up paying like $6 with like, or depending really, but like $6 to $10 on like fees just from DoorDash or, these third parties.
Yeah. Very, maybe we got in the wrong business, JoAnne.
I know, right?
Yeah, we should have got us a fleet of cars and took off. That's crazy. But anyway, so you guys are doing great and you've gotten through the COVID piece, and business is rocking and rolling. And I didn't really prep you or anything for asking you about marketing, but I'm curious, as a young entrepreneur, to maybe what you're doing on the marketing side to try and grow your business.
So marketing, I love marketing. That's actually what I majored in, like specifically. So I really like, which I found really, really successful, is social media marketing. Everybody is on social media nowadays. I feel like 90% of the population is on social media. So they're going to see a lot of sponsored ads, or something that intrigues them. Facebook and Instagram are really good with their analytics on like what people like, what people are interested in. If you ever just are like mindful and you're seeing on like these social media platforms, if you see any sponsored ads, it's more things that's geared towards you. And that's because Facebook and Instagram are really like, they're taking all of your information, sad to say, but pretty much gearing things towards what you like. And so from the year that I took over from my parents to the following year that I had taken over, we saw like a 200% increase in our sales because of the marketing that I started doing for the business. And so I just think it's so helpful. And social media has become really powerful, even for small businesses as well, for people that are really, really starting off just from their businesses from home. I've been like really mindful of those things because I've seen these things. And I, of course, support small businesses. So, social media is where it's at, really.
All right. And so I'm going to dig into that just a tad deeper. So you mentioned Facebook and Instagram. Are those your two primary social channels?
Yes.
Are you doing TikTok or any of the other ones as well?
We're not doing TikTok. We currently have Twitter as well that we're slowly diving into. But the most successful that I've really seen is Instagram, just because of our demographics that we're gearing towards, which is like the age range of 20 to 50. So that's where I've seen a lot of our clientele coming from, is that platform, because they even come in and they're like, "Oh, I saw you on Instagram," and I'm like, "Oh, good, glad it's working."
Yeah, exactly. Tell all your friends and get them to follow us and all that good stuff too.
Yeah, exactly. And they do it at a really affordable price for like the amount of impressions that they're reaching out. So I think it's very, you can even start off with small as like $100 if you want to, for like 30 days, which is something that I did when I first started out, because I kind of wanted to see. And like instantly within that week, I saw an uptick of our customers and our sales go up. So I was really surprised at how powerful social media can be.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. And last question in regards to Facebook, Instagram, and this is just something I'm interested in knowing, but maybe some of our audience will as well. But how often are you posting? Do you have like a regular schedule? Are you doing it daily, multiple times a day, a few times a week?
Great question. Yeah, we actually do it a few times a week. I've gotten so overwhelmed with our social media that I have actually hired somebody else to do it because it's just a lot of work in itself to handle it. But yeah, we'll be posting like 3-4 times a week, and we get actually a lot of our orders through our Instagram because we have a link on there that we provide, and we try to do things to where we'll entice customers to order with us. Like for example, like 15% off your first online order, so they'll get enticed to order and things like that. So that way, we can gain them as a regular customer.
Yeah, absolutely. Good thinking. Good job. It's nice to
Thank you.
Yeah, nice to use that education a little bit, right?
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah. So what about like going forward? Are you to the point yet? And I know you're just kind of 2 years back and getting through COVID, but have you thought about expanding the business or growing it or anything like that at this point?
Yeah, so I'm actually for the first 2 years that I took over, I kind of wanted to get procedures in place and kind of like a structure in place for our restaurant. So now that I'm already kind of like already complete with that phase of the business part that I have for the restaurant, I'm actually looking into franchising our restaurant. And so I'm still in the early phases of that, but that's pretty much my next project in the next like 1 to 2 years is franchising our restaurant and opening up additional locations either in the Bay Area, Sacramento area, Southern California. So that's really like what I have planned in the upcoming 1 to 2 years.
Now, so let me ask you this: are those first few store openings that you're talking about now with the expansion, will they be company owned? It's kind of proof of concept, or will they be franchisees?
They will be franchisee locations.
Gotcha. Just curious, and I know that whole process is a long one, and I don't know how deeply you've gotten into it, but there's a lot of work involved. But it sounds like if you built your procedures and your structures out right, that you've already got a lot of it done. So hopefully, it won't be too much extra effort on your part.
Yes, it is a lot of work, but I just feel like this is very rewarding for me.
Yeah, I know, and I mean, it's tough to just remain constant, and not have something to look forward to, and not trying to grow your business. And some people say if you're not growing, you're dying. So I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I kind of feel that way. That you need to be able to keep going and keep moving forward.
Exactly.
Yeah. So any words of wisdom that you might have that you'd be willing to share with us for like any other young or old wannabe entrepreneurs for helping them, get the courage and wisdom to get started? Any pearls of wisdom you want to throw out there for us?
I would definitely say you're going to have hard days and you're going to have overwhelming days. So I would just say get through it, feel it, and just move forward. Remember why you're doing this, because there are going to be days where you're just going to want to cry and be so overwhelmed because this happened, this, random things come up. But you just have to keep pushing and remember what your goal is, because that's what's going to make you successful, and always keep pushing for what's best and what's next for your business, because you always, like I said, want to keep growing and be as successful as you want to be. So it's up to you what your motivation is and your end goal is, but always just remember why you're in this, for whatever it may be.
Well, I think that's really sage advice, to keep those goals in mind and help you get through some of those bad times. And actually, as I was saying that, normally I'm kind of wrapping up with those words of wisdom, but it made me go back I'd like to ask one more question if you got a couple minutes.
Yeah, of course.
How has, or what are you doing, or how are you dealing with building future leaders in your business, in terms of, because these would, employees would be a great resource for franchisees, if you had people moving up through the ranks. And I know turnover's been an issue, but from a training perspective, how are you guys training your people, and do you see that changing in the near future?
I always look for, when I'm training people or looking for somebody that has a leadership, or I'm always looking for someone that has leadership qualities. And if I see that they're invested in the company, I will, make it my personal goal to see, like, what they want to do in life, or what their plan is. So that way I can either shape them to where they want to be, and, grow them to be a great leader. So that's usually like the qualities that I see. And if I see that they have that determination and that motivation, those are, I'm definitely willing to train that person, so that way they can be the best employee or staff that they could be.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we need to multiply ourselves, right?
Exactly.
and finding people that are invested in the business is really difficult. It's a lot of people are punching clocks, and don't have a long-term plan together to be with us. And that's what we need as business owners. We need people who are invested, and finding ways to get more people invested is one of the big challenges, I think. So
Exactly.
well, congratulations to you for your success and what you're doing at such a very young age. You've already got a business. You're looking to grow your business and finding success. And for all our listeners, again, this is Sushi Obsession, and I can't even say it today. Sushi Obsession in Vallejo, California. If you haven't been there yet, get yourself down there and check them out. Have a meal, and be sure to give them a good review, and tell all your friends. Right, JoAnne? Those reviews count too.
Oh, of course. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it's a big piece of business these days, especially in the restaurant space. So I encourage all your fans to go do that for you, and help you guys grow and be successful. And Sushi Obsession is looking for great people. So if you are great people, get down there and talk to JoAnne, and maybe become a part of her team. Who knows? You might own a franchise before too long.
Yes.
Yeah, well, thank you again, JoAnne, for being on today. I'm gonna wrap us up, and again, just say thanks for your time and for sharing your story and your knowledge and what you've learned so far. I think it'll be great inspiration and very helpful to our listeners. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it.
We do as well. And to all our listeners, we appreciate you being here today for another episode of the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm Jeff Johnson, and I will be seeing you on our next episode.